strength, size, power. These are the things a man needs to play rugby. And you have none of these, Williams, they said. But they were wrong. It was the size of his heart, the power of his ambition, the strength of his character.
It takes 24 minutes to turn around a Eurotunnel freight train full of imports from Europe at the terminal near Folkestone. It then leaves full of lorries heading for the continent, 6 trains an hour, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, a quarter of all our trade with Europe, or £100 billion worth a year. This is the frictionless trade border with Europe in action. 99% of traffic completely unchecked, tariff-free, up until now, within the European Union and its single market and customs union.
You've got fresh vegetables, fish going from Scotland. We've got processed food, car parts, pharmaceuticals coming through in powdered pharmaceuticals.
Right, and if there are checks, then nothing here will be checked?
Nothing here will be checked. This is all intra-European transport. So
that is frictionless?
That's absolutely frictionless. It's like moving something from Manchester to London. There's no check on the motorway. You just take it from one depot and you deliver it in another. And that's how it works today.
But if, depending on the customs deal, another one going there, depending on the customs deal and the single market deal, you're going to have to check the plants. You have to check the veg,
DEFRA plants. Yeah, you've got the customs, you've got tariffs, if there are rules of origin.
So when we're told not frictionless, but as frictionless as possible, what would that mean here?
The as possible has to go. The only way to run this is frictionless.
Yesterday, Sky News revealed that the government had obliged key operators on the border to sign non-disclosure agreements over the shape of the post-Brexit border.
There are no customs checks here. This is frictionless trade. But there will be no customs checks either, whatever Brexit brings, because there can't be any. There's simply not the space. And privately, the government is acknowledging that, because even if in 12 months' time there is no deal, what the government is suggesting is to unilaterally not enforce legally required customs checks, what the industry is nicknaming the throw open the borders option. How's that for taking back control?
But all that presumes that across the Channel, Europe would reciprocate by not applying its own union customs law to what will then be the third country of the United Kingdom. The freight trade is baffled by this presumption in government.
Disruption in Europe trying to get to Britain is just as much of a problem for Britain as disruption here. If we have massive queues of the goods we rely on at Calais not being able to get in, then that's going to be disastrous for us. And the EU is going to enforce the rules it has. It has to. That's the way it works.
This month, the Treasury confirmed it would take a pragmatic approach to border controls to the Public Accounts Committee. The head of that committee, unimpressed.
If you have a 2-minute delay on every freight vehicle, that could be 17 miles of tailback, both sides of the English Channel. So you can understand government wanting to solve that, but is solving that throwing open the borders to all players? We said you're not really taking into account how people might change their behaviour for nefarious reasons, to break the law, to do bad things to our country. And it is staggering, after all this government's constant talk about controlling our borders, that we're faced with a situation which could be fairly open borders and chaos on day one.
Even if there is a deal outside the customs union and single market goods regulations, checks will be required somewhere. This is the current customs checking facility that serves the Channel Tunnel and the Port of Dover, a few miles away off the M20 at Stop 24. It has just 82 lorry parking spaces. As time ticks down for credible solutions, the private sector has to make its own decisions amid the uncertainty.
They're having to set two different prices. One for now while we're still in the EU, and then a higher price once you're out of the EU, because of uncertainty. Until a transition deal is actually nailed down and is legal, and we can say our members, you can absolutely rely on this, then people have to price for the possibility that there will be no transition. They have to try and put procedures in place, but they have to price accordingly.
And the lack of border plans is beginning to change minds, including the chair of a key customs consultative committee, himself no fan of the EU.
If it doesn't work, what are the consequences?
The ports come to a grinding halt.
Really though, when we've had this apocalyptic predictions and they didn't come to pass, is this not just more of the same?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're always warned that you shouldn't use the word disaster when you're talking to the politicians because they're immune to it. And really, there's been nothing like this at all.
You paint quite a dark picture of where this could go if the government doesn't get a grip of the customs situation, and yet you voted leave.
I did. Well, I didn't vote for what it appears we're going to get now, though.
Put simply, something is amiss. The money is not being spent, the planning permissions not being sought, nor the customs officers being trained, let alone shovels in the ground to build the new facilities inescapably required by the government's decision to leave the single market and customs union. Instead, the government is signing secrecy agreements about unilateral plans widely dismissed by the people who actually operate the frictionless border. With 12 months to go and transition not a legal certainty, something has got to give, and soon. Faisal Islam, Sky News in Kent.